unforgiving Wild West, where every shadow could mean death, a lonely farmer's single act of kindness changed everything. Elias Crow had lived alone on his small, dusty ranch for almost 10 years. The year was 1875, and the Arizona frontier was a wild and dangerous place. Apache tribes fought to protect their land, white settlers pushed forward with guns and fences, and bandits roamed freely looking for easy targets. Elias's wooden cabin stood at the edge of a dry valley, surrounded by rocky hills and sparse bushes. He owned only a few cows, some chickens, and fields of corn that barely grew in the hard soil. Every single day was the same. He woke before the sun rose, milked the cows, fixed broken fences, and worked until his back burned with pain. At night, the house felt too big and too empty. He would sit by the small fire, eating plain beans and bread, staring at the old wooden chair where his wife Sarah used to smile and tell stories. 5 years earlier, a terrible fever had taken both Sarah and their 5-year-old son. Since that day, Elias had not laughed once. The silence inside the cabin was so heavy it sometimes felt like it was pressing on his chest. He never visited the nearby town much. The other settlers thought he was a quiet, strange man who kept to himself. Deep down, Elias felt completely alone in the world. One cold winter evening, the sky turned deep orange as the sun disappeared behind the red hills. A sharp wind blew across the valley, cutting through Elias's old coat like a knife. He was walking along his fence line, checking for damage, when he heard a weak, painful moan coming from a cluster of dry bushes. His heart jumped. Slowly, with careful steps, he moved closer. There, lying on the freezing ground, was a young Apache woman. She could not have been more than 20 years old. Blood soaked her side from a deep wound, maybe a bullet or a knife cut. Her face was pale and covered in dirt. Her lips were cracked and dry from thirst and hunger. She shivered violently in the icy wind, her dark eyes half closed in pain. She looked so small and helpless against the harsh land. Elias froze. His mind raced with fear. If he helped her, the Apache people might think he had hurt her and come for revenge. If the white settlers found out, they would call him a traitor and maybe even hang him. His hands started to shake. For a long moment he stood there, torn between the danger and the sight of this suffering girl. Then she let out another soft cry of pain, and something inside Elias broke. She was not an enemy. She was just a human being who needed help. "I can't leave her here to die," he whispered to himself. "Not like this." "Easy now," he said gently, kneeling beside her. "I'm not going to hurt you." His voice was soft and kind, the way he used to speak to his son when he was sick. With great care, Elias lifted her light body into his strong arms. She was burning with fever. He carried her slowly back to his cabin, his boots slipping on the frozen ground. Inside, he laid her on his own bed, the same bed he had shared with Sarah. He lit the lantern, boiled water, and cleaned the wound as gently as he could. He used the little herbal medicine he knew from his years on the farm. He wrapped her side with clean cloth strips. Then he made hot soup with vegetables and a little meat and fed her spoon by spoon. The young woman was too weak to speak, but her eyes showed a mix of fear, surprise, and quiet thanks. All through the long, cold night, Elias sat on a wooden stool beside the bed. He changed the bandages whenever they got wet, gave her sips of water, and wiped her forehead with a cool cloth. Fear kept whispering in his ear, "What if someone sees her? What if they come for me?" But every time he looked at her peaceful, sleeping face, a warm, peaceful feeling filled his lonely heart. For the first time in years, the empty house felt a little less empty. When the first light of morning crept through the window, Elias woke up tired but calm. The bed was empty. The young woman had slipped away without a sound. He stood there for a long time, staring at the neatly folded blanket. A strange sadness touched his chest. I hope she reached her people safely, he thought quietly. But only a few hours later, everything changed forever. Elias looked out the window while drinking his morning coffee, and his blood turned cold. Nearly 200 Apache warriors on strong horses had silently surrounded his entire ranch. They sat tall and still, their faces painted with bold war colors, spears and rifles ready in their hands. The morning sun glinted off their weapons. Not a single word was spoken. Elias's heart pounded so hard he could hear it in his ears. This is it, he thought. They've come to kill me for touching one of their own. His legs felt weak, but he refused to hide. He took a deep breath, left his rifle inside, and stepped out of the cabin with empty hands raised high. He walked slowly toward the warriors, the cold wind blowing his gray hair. The warriors parted like a river. An older man, the chief, rode forward. He was tall, strong, and carried the quiet power of a leader. Behind him, on another horse, sat the young woman Elias had helped. She looked much stronger now, her wound bandaged and her eyes bright. The chief raised his hand and spoke in clear but accented English. "This is not an attack, white man," he said. "This is a judgment." Elias stood confused, fear still tight in his throat. The young woman leaned forward and spoke softly to her father in their language, then turned to Elias. Her voice was gentle as she told the chief everything. How she had been hurt in a fight with bandits, how she had crawled to the bushes to die, how Elias had found her, carried her without hesitation, cleaned her wound, fed her, and stayed awake all night watching over her, even though he knew the terrible risk. He showed no fear and no hate, she said, only kindness. The chief listened carefully. The hard lines on his weathered face slowly softened. The warriors lowered their weapons one by one. The heavy, dangerous air around the ranch changed into something warm and respectful. The chief climbed down from his horse and walked straight up to Elias. He placed a strong hand on Elias's shoulder. "You saved my daughter's life," he said. "In our Apache way, when someone saves a life, it creates a sacred bond that cannot be broken. You are no longer our enemy. From this day forward, you are under our protection. We will guard you as one of our own." Tears of relief and deep emotion filled Elias's eyes. He could hardly speak. The same warriors who had come ready for war now looked at him with honor and respect. For the first time in many lonely years, Elias felt truly seen and valued as a human being. From that day on, Elias Crow's life was never the same. The Apache people did not ride away. Many of them made a camp on the hills near his ranch. They became his silent guardians. When bandits tried to steal his cows one night, the Apache warriors appeared like shadows and drove them off without a single shot fired at Elias's home. They helped him mend his broken fences, taught him how to find water in the dry land, and showed him better ways to grow corn and beans so his fields became green and full. In return, Elias shared his simple meals with them around the evening fire. He listened to their stories of the old days, and they listened to his quiet memories of Sarah and his son. For the first time since his family died, Elias felt like he had brothers and sisters again. His once dangerous and lonely days became safe and warm. The fear that used to live in his heart slowly melted away. The other settlers in the area were shocked and amazed. Some felt jealous, but most began to respect the peace that one man's kindness had created. Elias never bragged about what happened. He stayed humble and kind, working his land with the same steady hands. Years passed gently. Elias grew older. His hair turned completely white, and his steps became slower. But the Apache people still came to visit. They called him brother, and sometimes even grandfather. Young warriors would sit with him on the porch, sharing fresh deer meat and laughing at old jokes. The ranch stayed safe. The crops grew strong. The dangers of the Wild West seemed to stay far away, as if an invisible shield of friendship protected him. One quiet spring morning many years later, Elias passed away peacefully in his bed while the sun rose over the hills. When the Apache people heard the news, they came from every direction. They carried his body with great honor and buried him on a beautiful hill overlooking the ranch, mixing their traditional songs and prayers with the respect they had for his simple life. The old chief, now gray-haired too, stood at the grave and spoke with a voice full of emotion. This man showed us that kindness is stronger than any bullet or any hate. He will always be remembered as a true friend and brother. Elias Crow's one small act of humanity had not only saved his own life, it had built a bridge of trust between two worlds that once lived in fear and anger. In a harsh world full of suspicion and hatred, his simple kindness proved that one gentle choice can create a miracle that lasts forever. Thank you so much for watching this story all the way till the end. If you enjoyed it, please hit the like button and share it with your friends. It really helps us a lot. If you want to watch more exciting stories like this, don't forget to join and follow our page right now. Tell me in the comments, where are you listening from and what time is right now? And if this story touched your heart, please send some stars. Every single star gives us huge motivation to keep creating more amazing videos for you. See you in the next story. Take care of you, friends.